and 14, 0 turnovers. That's never happened. And Zion Williamson, 26, 10, and 5, putting on a show. Let's dive right into it. Mr. Smith, you're up first. More impressive night. Would you go with Harden or Zion?
I'm going to go with Harden. And the reason why I'm going to go with Harden, believe it or not, is not just the fact that it was the fact that he did not commit one single turnover. I want to repeat that. James Harden finished the night with 30 points, 15 assists, 14 rebounds in 44 minutes played on 52% shooting from the field, 43% shooting from three-point range, and did not commit a single turnover. Just think about that for a second. Not a single turnover. This man right here is playing at an MVP caliber level. And then when we look at the evidence and we see, unfortunately, my brother Stephen Silas struggling in Houston as a rookie head coach, first time he's ever been a head coach after 20 years as an assistant. This guy, Stephen Silas, and the Houston Rockets have lost 12 straight. They're one of the worst teams in basketball at this particular moment in time. And obviously that has a lot to do with the fact that James Harden is no longer wearing a Houston Rockets uniform. But then you see him go to Brooklyn. Kyrie's gone, no problem. KD's gone, no problem. Still in all, James Harden, even though Kyrie played last night, shows up against the San Antonio Spurs team. They're still a playoff team. They're not a scrub team. And this brother plays 44 minutes, drops a 30-point triple-double, shoots better than 50% from the field, better than 40% from three-point range, and doesn't commit one single turnover. It doesn't get closer to perfect than that. Zion's a stud, but he wasn't perfect. James Harden last night was pretty close to perfect. That's why I say more impressive night was for Harden.
James Harden's better than Zion Williamson. He had a better night last night than Zion Williamson. And I'll even go you one better, Stephen A. For the first time in James Harden's career, through the MVP, through the near MVPs, through everything he's ever done, averaging 30 whatever points and everything, for the first time in his career, I get the feeling like I might be watching the best player in basketball when I watch Harden. I've never felt that way before. He's got that glow. He's got the last dragon glow right now, Stephen A. He's playing at a whole different level.
And there's no show enough to stop him.
That's show right. Enough. Show enough. Yeah, that's right. He's more like Bruce Leroy right now. Look, he's amazing. But I was more impressed by Zion last night. And I was more impressed by Zion last night because he's a 20-year-old kid. He is man strong and big and all that stuff and has real maturity beyond his years. But most people who are 20 are not done with college yet. He is a 20-year-old kid doing that in the NBA. And what exactly did he do? Last night, against the best team in basketball this year so far, who's been crushing everybody, right? What happens? The Jazz are up. You're coming into the second half. They already got the lead. And now comes the avalanche. All the open shooters. It's over. And what I saw was a team led by Zion Williamson imposing their will on the Jazz. Not the Jazz or the Avalanche, but Zion Williamson is more physically the manifestation of an actual avalanche. And in this NBA, Stephen A., where it's hard to be like a kind of Shaq-like physical presence and just impose that, he did it to the Utah Jazz and led his team. And I gotta tip my cap to Stan Van Gundy because Zion Williamson is playing point forward. And so I just brought up the fact that he can muscle his way inside, but he is not only a willing passer, he has real court vision. And the fact that Van Gundy has given him the freedom to grab the rebound, run the floor, make a play, he's doing it. So for a 20-year-old kid built like Zion, right, to be able to do that in this modern NBA to the Utah Jazz is, to me, the most impressive thing I saw in the NBA last night, and that includes James Harden.
Well, I understand where you're coming from because Zion Williamson had a big night. Obviously, it was against the Utah Jazz. And what I'm most impressed by watching him is his quickness. He's really quick. I mean, he's got that first step. He's got some speed, but he's also got some quickness, some acceleration. And when you look at it from that perspective, and then you consider the power, the strength, just the mass of this young man. The sky's the limit for him as long as he can stay healthy. And God help anybody if he plays, with a little bit more ambidextrous skills, where he uses both hands instead of just his left. God help everybody once that happens, if he stays healthy, because he's definitely got the heart. He ain't scared of anything. He's scaring everybody else. He's incredibly impressive, no doubt about it. And it's also hurting John Morant from the standpoint that we know that John Morant can ball. We're proud of the fact that he's Rookie of the Year, but every time you see Zion, you recognize that if Zion had been healthy, John Morant would not have been Rookie of the Year. That's pretty easy to surmise. But in the end, still in all, when you look at the Utah Jazz, with the top shooting three-point team in the league, they shot 17 of 43 from three-point range last night. Look at Mike Conley Jr., didn't have that good of a night. Look at Donovan Mitchell. He shot 7 of 21 from the field. He didn't have that good of a night. So it wasn't really their night, and you got to give New Orleans credit because their defense has been horrid, and they've been trying to improve upon that. And last night, they prioritized that to some degree. So Stan Van Gundy deserves a lot of credit in that regard as well, because we all know the man can coach. But in the end, still in all, I don't think that compares to Harden. 30, 15, 14, on 50% shooting from the field, 42% shooting from three-point range, 44 minutes played, and not one single turnover in 44 minutes.
Harden had a better night.
Point guard. I can't ignore that.
Harden had the better night, and I think the strongest part of your argument is the no turnovers. Like, for a guy to play 44 minutes, to be the primary ball handler, to orchestrate the offense, to have a triple-double with 30-something points, and not to turn the ball over is extremely impressive. We're talking about two very impressive performances last night. Zion Williamson was taking it to Rudy Gobert. He was taking it to Rudy Gobert. There was nothing anyone could do. That's the number one guy you'd want probably in the league, in the paint, to try to stop him. There was no stopping him. You talk about Zion's quickness, and you could talk about him off the dribble, and he has better handles than given credit for, and he has enough wiggle in his game to be successful at this level as a wide body. What about his quickness to grab the board off his own misses? I'm trying to think. I think it's the quickest I've ever seen. In other words, a guy goes up in the paint, he puts the ball up. It doesn't, he doesn't get it to go. Zion gets back up off the floor faster than anyone I've ever seen and does it with crazy hops. He was, considering the team they played, considering his age, considering his responsibilities in the offense now, considering the way the game was going and the momentum and what felt like the inevitable. The Jazz are always the ones who make the halftime adjustments, and then here it comes. And they were already winning in the game. By the way, I didn't mention this. Considering this is a Zion Williamson-led team, and the Jazz did come back. Of course they eventually surged back, and the Pelicans held them off in a night of amazing performances, both by Zion and Harden. I was most impressed. Not arguing with the best performance. I was most impressed by the 20-year-old, Zion Williamson.
Last time I checked, when we asked what was more impressive, you're talking about what was the better performance, and you've already conceded that James Harden, which means you're just talking because you want to hear your voice. You want to hear your own voice. You already know I'm right. You already know I'm right. You know I'm right. Just it's okay, Max. It's all right to just look at the camera and say, Stephen A. You're absolutely right. That's
what
all
was
you
so
have to say.
impressive about Tom Brady in the Super Bowl? He's 43 years old.
It's not hard things to do. You already said, Stephen A. You're absolutely right.
Tom Brady getting the
just
combo.
stop it.
The point is, I'm pointing out age and circumstances. Why it impresses me.
Record-breaking night.
Oh, you got under my skin just then, Stephen A. Smith.
Admit you're wrong.
Right. All right, let's just move on. Guys, Harden is in the...
I say this respectfully, but that's a matchup that I've dominated, my whole, since I got to the league. Great defender, he lays the leg in blocks, should be up there when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year. And that's also one of my goals. To be Defensive Player of the Year. So in those type of matchups, that's where you take advantage. You got to take advantage of those matchups, especially if, I have my eyes set on being a Defensive Player of the Year.
All right, Max, I know he was your MVP favorite at one point. I don't know if he still is, but that got us thinking about dominant big men. So I want to ask you this. Do you think Embiid is a more skilled big man than Shaq?
Yes, and I want to be very clear. Shaquille O'Neal was better in his NBA than Embiid is in this NBA. Okay, are we clear? For the same people who want to give Mel Kiper grief because he makes a comparison to Tom Brady. Oh, you can't. Shaquille was better in his day than Embiid is in this day. But if we're just talking skills, yes, the answer is yes. Embiid is a more all-around skillful player. Now, Shaq was an underrated passer. He was a very good passer. I always thought of him as a good passer. But Embiid has become a much better passer. In terms of their dominance in the paint, no one ever was as dominant if they got the ball down low than Shaquille O'Neal. But Embiid, in this NBA in particular, is also impossible. He's a legit 7-footer, Stephen A. 250. He's a 7-footer and a wide body, and he's in shape now. But so the down low skills are there, and he's shooting fewer threes, and he's more down in the paint than before. And as a result, he's at the line more than ever before, and he's shooting 86%. Free throws, much better than Shaquille O'Neal ever did. And even though he's shooting fewer threes, like 2 or 3 a game, 2.5, 3 threes a game, he's hitting them at like 40% or a little better even right now, Embiid. The difference primarily between Shaq and Embiid in terms of all-around skill is Embiid can shoot. In fact, there's never been in the history of the NBA a 7-footer who's a big 7-footer, not a power forward, a center, who can play with his back to the basket with the all-around skills of Embiid. You know, I'm cheating a little bit there because Duncan and Olajuwon more like, a little shorter. Embiid can do everything you want a center to do. He's the most skilled, legit 7-foot wide body ever.
My response to that is Joel Embiid can shoot the ball better away from the basket. He's clearly a better free throw shooter. And so if you want to look at it from a skilled perspective, meaning they're both over 7 feet tall and Embiid could do a little bit more, will I argue with you when you made the points that you make? No, not at all. Here's my retort to it, however. I don't give a damn. It means nothing. Because it ain't about what you can do. It's about what you actually do. And Shaquille O'Neal was 7'1", 320 pounds, was a man amongst boys, and played like it every night for the vast majority of his career. He treated you like the child you were compared to him. He wasn't some pretty boy with a curly afro pulling up from 20 or 23. He wasn't sitting up there trying to dance and dribble the ball on the perimeter and had to wait until a coach got fired and they got tired of getting swept in the playoffs to learn that you're supposed to have your big butt down low and be a man amongst boys. I recall Joel Embiid going on national television and saying, Shaq's right. Get your big behind back down in the post and be a man. And manhandle these young boys. Because compared to you, they are boys. You making them look like men because you're not playing as hard as you can play. You are not dominating them, which was why Shaq at the time, about a year and a half ago, Max, if you recall, sat up there and said if he had to take off his Superman cape and give it to somebody, it would have been the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo because he goes in the hole and treats boys like they are boys. What we're seeing from Joel Embiid now, you applaud him for it, Max. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it because I love Joel Embiid. What I'm saying is that it also illuminates what he hasn't done. But he could have done it all along. Did he gain extra pounds? Did all of a sudden he acquire skills he didn't have? These things that you're seeing from Joel Embiid right now are skills he had last year, skills he had the year before, skills he had the year before that. And when healthy, he still ain't used them. So when you sit up here and you talk about Joel Embiid and what he's doing, what you're missing is that the ultimate indictment against him is that he didn't learn and acquire something new. Doc Rivers came to the Philadelphia 76ers and said, yo, what the hell are you doing? Get the ball and do what you're supposed to do.
You're
that's
talking
what
about,
Doc said.
Look, I respect
that's the difference.
I respect it because you're talking about an attitude. I'm not comparing their attitude. I'm talking about skills.
I'm not saying
and
that
by
you
the
are.
way,
Hold on. I'm not saying that you're comparing the attitude. I'm saying you must I'm saying you're omitting it and just talking about his skill.
Yeah,
if you have
that's the question.
that's like somebody learning from Max Kellerman. Max Kellerman, you're teaching them boxing. You're teaching them oratorical skills and what have you. And you even invite them to Columbia with you. And then they get on the air and they start mumbling like Shaq. You'd have a problem with that. Because you know they know better.
But look,
you know they know better.
I understand your point, but I am just talking about skills. I'm making a specific point about skills. At his size, there's never been anyone like Embiid. And in this NBA, Stephen A., the offensive skills are just half of it. He's the best defender in the league probably this year. And think of how versatile you have to be defensively now compared to back in the day as a big today. I didn't think it was possible for a back-to-the-basket type guy, which Embiid can do, to be an MVP. But right now, I think he is. I saw him put a move. I brought this up yesterday. I saw him put a move on Cleveland over the weekend. A step-back, mid-range jump shot, and I didn't know it was Embiid at first. I thought it was a guard or a forward. What? That's Joel Embiid? His skills, we've never seen anything like it in a package like this. And the fact that he can apply it in the modern NBA, both ends of the floor, all I'm saying is we're seeing something new.
Matt, fine. And here's my retort to that. Max Kellerman, Joel Embiid is shooting 52% from the field this year. Do you realize that's the first time in his career he shot better than 50% on the season?
Because he moved inside.
Shaquille O'Neal shot better than 52 or 50% from the field the first 17 years of his career.
Yeah.
17
all high
years.
percentage shots, I get it.
But what I'm saying is, knowing who you are and dominating from that perspective, you got to, when you look at the skill, I'm saying you can applaud it. I'm saying it's an indictment against Embiid because the skills have been there. You could have been doing this. Philly
you want to beat him up over what he was or what he is now?
Philly might have been to the finals 2 years ago.
You want to give him his flowers for what he is now, or you want to beat him up for what he was?
But we got a guest coming up. I know we could do this all day. It's good. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. One day, given the Hook less than halfway into a season that carried heightened expectations before being hampered by injuries, Atlanta president and GM announced the move in a short statement that he was released by the team. Assistant Nate McMillan will serve as the team's interim coach. Stephen A., I want to start with you. What is your reaction to the Lloyd Pierce firing in Atlanta?
I'm suspicious and I'm alarmed. I'm happy that Nate McMillan, who's been a head coach in the NBA for 16 years, and in Seattle, Portland, Indiana. I'm happy that he's the interim coach. Personally speaking, I'd like to see him get the job permanently. If not, I'd like to see guys like Mike Woodson, who had success as the Atlanta head coach years ago, who's an assistant on the Knicks bench, be considered now. But I will say this. Lloyd Pierce, even though the record is not that impressive, 63 and 120 since being hired in 2018, 20 and 47 last year, to be specific. After starting off the season 10 and 9, they've lost 11 of their last 15. I get it. But for the Atlanta Hawks to take this position now, as opposed to the end of the season, it's got my antennas up. Because Lloyd Pierce has been very outspoken about a lot of things pertaining to social justice issues and things of that nature. He clearly has had the support of the organization, at least it appeared to be that way. With the Atlanta Hawks, because they've been obviously on top of things that was transpiring in Atlanta and throughout our nation. But to fire him now, I just find it a bit odd. I find it a bit suspicious, particularly considering how outspoken Coach Lloyd Pierce has been. And Max, the brother just had the birth of his second child like 5-6 days ago. I'm kind of surprised that something like that would happen. It just seems to me, and then you think about what's happening with the Atlanta Storm, the WNBA team, and, he's outspoken and been very supportive of that. Obviously it all falls under that same umbrella. Maybe he rubbed people the wrong way. This doesn't seem to be purely just the fact that they're struggling right now. It seems to be a little bit something more that went along with this. Yeah. And I'm concerned about it, that he would be fired at this particular moment in time. I don't like it.
Well, I find it interesting that your antenna goes up there. I don't think I think it's reasonable to start asking questions. Yeah. I'll also say, though, that when if you look at what's going on with the Atlanta Hawks, they're trying to build around Trae Young. And the way they've done it is to spend a lot of money on good but not great veterans, like guys who were available, who they could reasonably sign, and put a team around him, like guys like Gallinari or Rondo, or like those kind of players. And it doesn't seem to me just to be about veteran leadership around a young core or a young star in Trae Young that will mold the team eventually to be a winner. It seems a little bit mixed up, like they're trying to sort of stay competitive and win now, and they're doing what they can while they're developing Trae Young. But at any rate, those decisions have backfired this year because the record is bad. And when the record is bad, the GM who puts the plan together ain't going to blame himself. Usually what happens is the coach catches it because the GM has the power to do that. Got the power to get rid of the coach, and you ain't going to get rid of yourself. So Schlenk, I believe, in Travis Schlenk, and who's
Yes.
Yeah, right, in Atlanta, he ain't going to fire him. He's going to fire the coach when you're underperforming, and your plan was to put out a competitive product while you're seeing what you really have in Trae Young, like what he's capable of in terms of how far he can carry a team.
Mm-hmm. Fellas, I want to get in one more debate here that I think is going to be pretty fun. So 59 years ago today, Wilt Chamberlain set a single-game scoring record, scoring 100 points over the Knicks. So, Max, I'll start with you here. Which current NBA player do you think is the most capable of scoring 100 points in a game?
This is a tough one. This is a tough one because Devin Booker dropped, 70 last year? And his game reminds me the most of Kobe's, actually, in terms of technically what he can do. I'm going to say James Harden. Because James Harden, when you look at usage rate, like how much a dude has the ball in his hands, his main support, teammates who sometimes aren't there, Kyrie's missed for a variety of reasons, Kevin Durant's been hurt, obviously, and that might continue. And the Nets are in a position where Harden will do whatever they need him to do. If they need him to distribute the ball, he'll do that. But if they need him to go bananas scoring, he'll do that too. I remember, Stephen A., when Kobe dropped the 81 against the Raptors, the Lakers needed those 81 points. That's why he scored 81. Not just because, look, I can do this, but because that's what was needed. And James Harden showed he's that kind of player. And the man can score from anywhere on the floor. I think Harden maybe has, I don't think anyone's going to get to 100, but maybe Harden has the best shot.
I hear you. I don't think anybody's going to get to 100 either. But to me, if I'm going to sit up there and say somebody has a chance, it's not only the skill set that they have to finish inside and out, but it's one with the assassin's mentality that would have the mindset that that's exactly what I want to do. You know, to think about a Wilt Chamberlain, to think about a Kobe Bryant, it's got to be somebody that says, I want to put on that kind of show. And here I come, and I'm coming to make history, and I'm coming to annihilate you. I'm coming to dance on you and do everything that I can to take your heart right out of your chest. And the name that comes to my mind is capable of doing that is Kyrie Irving. If Kyrie Irving gets on a tear, if you're talking about somebody that can get 81 like Kobe had it, or score 100 points someday in a game, where everything they put up just goes in, from inside, from outside, and they just demoralize you because they're embarrassing you and dancing on you, not just hitting jump shots, not just shooting from threes, but everything they put up, acrobatically and otherwise, they just have it. Kyrie's that kind of guy, man. Kyrie's that kind of guy. We might have questions about where his head is at sometimes or whatever the case may be because he got deeper things on his mind than basketball, clearly. But in the end, when you look at this brother's skills, he's a showstopper. And if there's somebody that could put in 100 points or 81 points like Kobe did, like literally just went on a tear and you just watched in awe as this brother put on a show, it's that dude right there. It's Kyrie Irving. That's the name that comes. Of course, I throw Steph in the equation because it's three-point marksmanship, but I certainly would throw Kyrie Irving in there. Yes.
I'll throw this at you, Stephen A. So we asked everyone at home the same question, and they had Steph Curry as the number one, followed by James Harden, then LeBron, and then Kyrie. Are you surprised our first take fam
said Steph?
Who did
you have number three? I heard Steph Curry. You said
so
Steph Curry. Who was the list?
Steph, James Harden, Kyrie, and then no. Steph, James Harden, LeBron, Kyrie.
Not LeBron. Get him out of there. Get him out of there. LeBron's not that dude.
Okay.
He's not. He doesn't want